Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to take an old PC and configure it to automatically detect a list of MP4s in an old x264 encoding several years old and automatically encode to a newer x265 codec, all done seamlessly in the background of a network PC. And I'm going to show you how to do that next. Okay, the tricky part is to take an old PC and have it automatic. So all you do is copy a file over to a network shared folder, and then it just all encodes, a even optional stop and optional shutdown. So it's easy to generate a batch file, and I'll get to that later, but one of the requirements for the old PC is to have a network shared folder for all your computers to see. So it has to have access to it. So once all the programs are loaded and run automatically, we'll get to the easy part. So the hard part, we need folder change view and FFmpeg. Of course, the FFmpeg does the encoding to x265, and then a handful of batch files. So let's touch on the folders change view. Like I said, the first thing you do is get the shared folder. So you point folder changes view to that folder, make it look for batch files, and make the execute command on new item added, and that should run the auto run command. So let me show you that. It's really simple. I have it located with the folder change view somewhere in there, so I have to tell it to pick the network shared folder, so it changes it to that folder, and then all this code does is look for a batch file and run it. Call it and run it. So once you copy the list in there, it will use the auto run and run it. So what it runs is the file queue and file subroutine. A little look at what the generated file looks like. Basically, it just calls the file queue. Make sure it's pointed to the directory that you need, and then all the files that you're going to process are behind that in succession. So we've got the change folder or folder changes view. We've got that running. Now in your configuration, when you start this up, in your folder where it automatically starts up, I use starter to put parameters on this program, because if you look in the help, it'll need to have like a little switch that says startup or something similar, and basically it tells it to start monitoring as soon as this runs. So in the startup, this must automatically run with that little thing to make it start monitoring right away. That will make this whole automated process work, because you just want to turn the power on and then everything is monitoring and ready to go. So that's folders change view. Make sure all that's located. Then the auto run runs the file queue. So it just gets the batch file we copied over and runs the file queue. Now this runs a certain subroutine, and it has a folder, like a temporary folder. So basically what this, I'll do it visually. So once the file queue is running, it holds all the files that you want to work with. And that can be, well, let me just go through the real simple part here. When you go to your network storage device in Explorer, you gather up all the files that you want to process. So basically that can be from 1 to 100 or to 1,000 files, whatever. But I recommend just do a couple just to see how it works. So you would drag that to an auto run maker, and that generates your auto file with the current time and it's a batch file. And that's what holds you the commands to run the file queue. So pretty easy. You just copy the auto file with the current time, you copy it over to the shared file, and if this is running perfectly, it will just work on each file, loop for each file, do some checks to make sure it doesn't already exist, and go until it's done. Now there's an optional stop and an optional shutdown. So if these files exist, let me go into file queue. I've marked them. So let's say you've done half the list and you want to shut down your computer or do some maintenance on it, or you just want to stop for the day and it's only gotten through half of your list. So all you have to do is wherever you want to put this optional stop file, it can be a text file, just rename it however you want. I just have it optional stop.tmp. So if that exists, it will stop in between encoding x265. And the optional shutdown is only triggered when it's done all the files and it goes to the very end. And if the optional shutdown file exists, and that's right here, then it will shut down your computer. So pretty automated. It gives you some options if you want to change something or stop for the day. The optional stop and optional shutdown are a good thing to add. And you can configure that if you're okay with batch files. This relies heavily on batch files, but do some editing and configure it to your own PC. Make sure you have an operating system that is Windows 7 or higher. The higher the better, because you can put the newer x265 or FFmpeg in there to the newer the better. So I've touched on the generation of the file, the loop processes, some of the things it goes through. Now what's neat is as this runs, let's say we have 10 or 20 files, what I've added in there, because I wanted to see the progress, and instead of logging in, which I can do to see what it's on, but I'd have to scroll through some stuff to actually see, or go to the network shared folder with the x265 to see if it's copied over any files. But instead of that, I've added a log file, 2 log files. So in the, I think it's the subroutine, yes. So when it gets done actually encoding, it will make one file, and it will update another. So, okay, it uses the name of the subroutine as the main log. So everything done with this subroutine, it makes a log, date, time, and the name of each file, and that will be in a permanent log file, and it will just append, so it will have a whole list if you do a lot. There's an individual one where it will just create this name of the individual file that it finished, and the name will just show up as the name.temp, and that will show up in a network shared folder. Now you can have this in the network storage device, or I just have it pointing to my PC, and that's a network shared folder. So it just copies the name of the file it worked on, so I can just look in that folder and see how many and what name it processed, what MP4 it processed. But you don't need this. You can just put a rem in front of that if you don't need that log. The final log, as it updates in the subroutine, it just appends, okay? And then right at the very end, right here, when it gets done with all the files, it will copy the final log file, however many files it did. It will copy to either, you can tell it to the network storage device that you have access to, or I have it set to go to a shared folder. So the complete log file will be copied there. So you'll have two copies, one on the old PC and one on the network shared main PC. So you can also rem that out if you don't want that, but that keeps you up to date on how many it's processed. It doesn't really tell you the time. I guess you could put that in there. I could name it with the name. Okay, that's in the subroutine. I could actually put the name and maybe add the time. But you can play around with that if you want to. So that will loop it automatically. Like I said, if you stop in between or have the optional stop and only finish half, you just delete the batch file, the original batch file in the network shared, and then just recopy the file generated, the auto file. Just go ahead and copy it back in there, and what the file queue will do is it will check if it exists on the network storage device. Then it will do a check to see if it's already processed the x265. So it'll see if the file exists. So if it does, it will skip it, and it'll just keep doing that until it comes across a file it hasn't converted to x265. So that way you can just use your old file and get you back to where you were before you optionally stopped it. And just make sure that when you go back to do that, you make sure the optional stop and optional shutdown are renamed, so it doesn't just optional stop you after one file. So you got to keep an eye on that. But otherwise, it will skip until it finds something to do. Then it will just do what it needs to do and not, tax your computer and do something you've already done. So I think I went through the process, easy process here. These files can be either generated on your old PC, like remoting in, or you could have the auto run maker on a different PC and do it that way. That's personal choice. I think I've gone through everything, except the subroutine here. Now this is set to do a special type of MP4. So before I get into that, if that's all you wanted to get from this video, I thank you for watching. I'm going to have more detail next. So stay tuned for that, because I'm going to, if you just wanted the basics, you could probably leave the video. But if you want to know a little bit more, please stay and continue. So this is a winter project. Since these make a lot of heat, a lot of processing, I'm going to do this in the winter. That'll, if I'm going to use the energy, I'd rather have the heat be useful. So that's why I'm doing some old cartoons. I have to do the cartoons with a 2010 editor. So the X264, it's Core 120 of the X264, and that's 2010. Pretty old codec. I'm having some difficulty on my Android device playing them. So I kind of want to, the main purpose of this is to cut the file size down. So I'm projecting it's going to take 1/3 of the file size and still have the same kind of quality. So I've got 17 gigs worth of these cartoons, Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies, that I want to cut down from 17 gig. So if I can cut 1/3 off of that, that'll save me some room. Plus, just bringing it up to a new codec is a good idea. So that's one reason why I'm doing this. You can also, I've also got other script if you just want to work on individual files. This scheme with the file queue is meant for off-site copying of the file to the PC and that kind of thing. I think there is some checks to where if the MP4 file exists in the media temp file, it will come up as an error and stop, because it can't copy onto something that already exists on your old PC. So a lot of different checks that's needed. Let me see. I think I went through everything except, yes, since these are animation or cartoons, you're not going to actually need probably unless you're doing cartoons. You're going to be doing TV shows and movies like I intend to do later. But you'll need to look in the subroutine, and there's a metadata. This metadata is put into the new MP4 of the x265. So any of these files, the file queue and the subroutine, you can just run and it will show you what the settings are for the FFmpeg encoder. So you can quick at a glance see what your file queue is set to, or just open it up and edit. This is pointing to the, like I said, I labeled it as ANI. You can put your TV show name in there, or just TV show or movie. But make sure you make a new subroutine which the settings reflect the what you're encoding. Like if it's a movie, these settings are going to be different. You would want to remove this line, the tune animation. You might even make sure check the movie with like media info. That will show you what it was encoded, the quality number or bit rate, and make sure that is parroted or duplicated so you're not putting at it a different quality rate and either losing or making it more quality when you can only go so far in quality. Once you're set at a certain quality, you can't get more quality out of something that's like a lower number. You can't really go lower than what it was the quality was originally set at. It just is a waste, in my opinion. So you can go on my website, put in PDF on the search. That will give you a lot of detail on some of these settings. Keyframe rate is an important one. Scene cut is an important one. Of course, the quality is very important. Of course, x265 library, and so on. So there's resources there for you to see what all these do. If you're not familiar, you can use my settings if you want, or look online for movie settings for the x265. But it's all on my website at gammaphase.altavista.com under About Author Batch Files. Or just do a search. You can do a search for x265 or 264 and FFmpeg. And I have a couple programs I've created, the utility programs using FFmpeg. Okay. Pretty much the variables here do not need to be touched. The only variables in the file queue you might need to change is where these batch files are located. You might have a different scheme. Of course, for sure, you're going to have a media temp location folder on your old PC, and then definitely the destination. This is my link station where I put my cartoons in the x265. So you're going to need to change that too. If you want to change the optional stop, you feel free to do so. Otherwise, don't really change anything unless you need to, like a shared folder, that kind of thing, or just rem something out if you don't want it to run. So that kind of goes through the file queue. Just make a duplicate of this subroutine, and then you can do your edits. Like if you want a movie or TV show, just have a couple like that if you're doing a certain type of MP4. So I think I touched on the generation of the file, the loop. There should be no problems. I can't see. Automaker's pretty easy. It just uses the whatever files you put in there and generates a batch file. Pretty easy. That'll be on my website. I don't think I'll put a sample file. Auto run is very easy. File queue and the subroutine is going to be more difficult. It does have notes in here, and feel free to rem these out or put in your own notes. There is some in the subroutine. There's some junk files here down at the end. This was all work in progress, and I used a different program and didn't quite clean everything up, but hopefully I've cleaned everything up on the website. Okay. This will help automate everything. So you don't need to really have a monitor. And so I have this set up in a room so it can do a work, kick out the heat room that I want heated. So just make sure it's not that noisy, like the hard drive isn't noisy or whatever, in case someone's sleeping, that kind of thing. I think that's it. If there's any questions, put them down below. If you have a better scheme, let me know in the comments. I don't guarantee I'm going to get to the comments, but feel free to add them. Hope this has helped. I might have a follow-up video, so stay tuned to my channel for great videos, and have a good one.